Well, we're back. This is Steve Sanson and Deborah Vick. Jim Jonas took another day off this week, Deborah, with Veterans in Politics.
2 for 2.
My goodness. I don't know what's going on with Jim. He's on vacation or what?
Well, I think a lot of people are on vacation, Steve. There's a lot of people that are here in Las Vegas. It's a good sign.
That's good. Good for our economy.
That's right. That's right. We need it.
Yeah, I just left a GOP picnic, and I had a great extensive conversation with the state Republican Party chairman, Mark Amadei, and it was very enlightening. We kind of exchanged different thoughts on things, and I thought that was pretty good. But I'd like to make an announcement. Today we have a meet and greet at the Fifth Street School with all the candidates. It's for Veterans in Politics, the Shine Foundation, and a Filipino veteran organization from 3 to 7 today. So at the Fifth Street School, everybody come on down and meet your candidates and ask those last final questions. We also have a debate with Congressional Congresswoman Dina Titus and Joe Heck, the Republican contender. So a lot of people are crunching these candidate stuff in right now because October 16th is right around the corner.
Well, it's a good thing. At least they're out in front of the public, and it's our responsibility to go out there and ask those questions.
That's right. And we have 3 guests today. We have Bill Gonzalez, who's the Clark County District Court Judge, Family Division, Department F, and also a candidate. And I haven't seen Kevinn Donovan, Democrat candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 22. But we have live in studio right now is David Lerner, Democrat candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 2. Deborah, do you have any more rants? Do you have any rants, by the way?
You know what, Steve? I'm just happy I see a lot of people, out and about. It's a gorgeous day, but, that's what, again, we need out here. So we have conventions going on, a lot of California plates. We have a lot of people coming in. So, I don't know, I'm pretty positive right now.
Yeah. Well, let's see if David Lerner could bring more people to the economy of Southern Nevada. David, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
David, could you give us a bio about yourself?
Sure enough. 35 years of financial experience, banking experience, and experience in healthcare, and a lot of community service ranging from youth soccer to disadvantaged. I headed up a foundation for disadvantaged women and pregnant teens. And just recently, a really exciting proposition, something that'll bring to nature the equivalent of what the folks over at the Smith Cultural Center are going to bring to the culture of Las Vegas. We're going to be working with the Forest Service up in Middle Kyle Canyon, and it's the Spring Mountains Conservancy, and I just became chairman of that.
Wow, that's very impressive, David. David, why are you running for Assembly District 2 against the incumbent? Is he not doing a good job or what?
Well, he can speak for himself. The truth of the matter is, since I've been here and I've been involved in a number of different activities, I think the basics are, if you're going to complain, then put your you-know-what on the line. I just don't feel that we're going in the right direction. I think this particular election is a tough one against an incumbent, yes, and all of that sort of stuff. The rants and the raves aside, the real issues are how are we going to pull Nevada up for the future? And this is a crucial election, and people say this, I know of any number of elections, but this one is increasingly important. And interestingly enough, not too many people pay attention to either the state Senate or the assembly races, and that's where all of these changes have to occur, at least as far as they result in changes for the benefit of our state.
But David, you're 77 years old. Shouldn't you be hanging out and enjoying life instead of the hustle and bustle of going to Carson City every other year?
I'm not a professional politician. I enjoy it. It keeps your mind sharp, and I do believe I've got a couple more years left that are worthwhile, and I've got a few ideas. I do not believe all of the stuff that you've heard about the hole in our budget, for example. I think there's much to be done in our education system. I'm to be perfectly honest about it, I'm very fiscally conservative, and that's my background. But in all respects, I think we're not on the right path yet. And I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. I could say that for both parties.
So what would you do different that's not being done regarding our education system?
Well, first of all, let me make it very clear to you that I don't believe in that $3 billion budget hole. I think that we have not yet used or have not yet fully examined the spending side of that budget. Now, that doesn't mean cutting the budget. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the process that we're using may be, in fact, incorrect. And there may be considerable amount of money available to us that we just don't see. And yeah, I know the next question logically would be, well, the experts have said there is a hole. Well, there may be, in fact, but then again, the experts also said the world was flat for many, many years. And I just want to see it. I want to see the numbers. And I want to see the department heads come forth and explain every nickel that they're spending.
You said that you're fiscally conservative. Then why are you a Democrat then? According to your incumbent, he was rated one of the top fiscally conservative legislators in the assembly. So how would you differ than him?
I think the approach, for one, I doubt very much if he really wants to look at the individual departments. I really seriously doubt if anybody has done that except superficially. And there isn't enough time to do it unless you really have the will to do so. And if anything else, if elected, I intend to put some spunk into that backbone of both sides of the aisle.
You're a retired senior vice president for J.P. Morgan Chase. Don't you think that might rub the voters a little bit wrong or a little bit raw?
I don't think so. When I retired, and that was back in '92, you have to remember that we did a few things that were that you could comment on effectively. We helped bail out Chrysler originally. I was responsible for part of that administratively in terms of audit. 120,000 jobs were actually saved in that bailout. And I'm very proud of that fact. We did a number of things in privatizing, for example, some farmers' home administration mortgages. And in every case that I was involved with, and that's why I say don't hold banking against me one way or the other, we did our homework. And unfortunately, the next generation may not have done so. We did our homework from a credit standpoint. People there were real people involved, and we looked at their financials. We worked very hard, very diligently with the Chrysler bailout. I recall that the bank made money. That's true. All of our associates made money. That's also true. But 120,000 families did not go without a salary, and Chrysler survived and did very well for quite some time.
Steve, I think that's a great example. And speaking to another former banker here, banking really isn't the enemy when it's done in a conservative fashion. And your background seems to be back in '92 when things were, people had to have actually money to put down on a home to purchase a property. So just make sure you're stating that loud and clear, because when you mention the word banker, people really do shut down because of everything that's happening thus far.
You're absolutely correct. And I say when I say I was a banker, I actually never really was on a banking floor in that sense. Our work was basically setting up the administration of these programs, doing the legal work involved in the program, supervising that, making sure everybody's money went in the right direction, and making sure the credits were correct.
Well, there's a lot of checks and balances, and that's what we really need to bring to the forefront.
Absolutely.
With our books today. So you're saying some positive things here.
Yeah. And it's something that I wish we would go back to old-fashioned banking.
Right.
It didn't hurt us years ago, and it certainly won't hurt us in the future.
David, from my understanding, people usually enter a race against an incumbent is because they feel that the incumbent is not doing the job, and I thought I was trying to ask you that question earlier. I want to know if in your perception is the incumbent not doing the job representing the people of Nevada or his district, why you were in the race, or are you just in the race because you're just in the race?
No. I think we can do better.
What is he doing that's not up to your standards that
It just struck me as funny by way of recently, for example, taking on after one term without very much experience. You might say very little legislative experience, trying to run for a minority leader. That struck me as a little odd.
But he didn't make that announcement until after filing, correct?
Correct.
So you already filed.
Correct.
So that's not the reason why you came in. I want to know why you originally came in the race.
No, I gave you those reasons very clearly before
I want to know if he's not doing the job up to your.
That's unfair. That's unfair to John. It's unfair to me.
But that's a fair question. I mean, when people go into a race, they usually go because they're trying to promote themselves, or they're going after the incumbent because the incumbent is not doing his job. I mean, if the incumbent is doing his job, why not just let him win? Why compete against him?
Because I honestly believe that I can do better. I also believe he has not done as good a job as possible for our assembly district. It's as simple as that. But John can speak for himself.
Could you give me examples?
Well, he's a sort of a one issue person in regard to child prostitution, child trafficking. That's all well and good, but it's like motherhood and sainthood and all of that sort of stuff. There are some major problems in this state. Education is one of them, and I don't see that being directed. I don't see any true leadership coming out of that. Not that I'm a great leader, but I intend very truthfully to make sure that our education system is bolstered. That is a must. It's one of the three corners of our economic recovery. You've got education, and you've got people bringing new business into Nevada. They won't bring businesses into Nevada without a trained group of people to do so. The dropout rate is alarming in the schools. We've got to examine that, and we've got to examine whether or not we've got to change our way of teaching, an academic side and a vocational side, and bolster both of them. It's absolutely essential for our future.
Okay. Earlier, you made a point, and you indicated that the incumbent is a freshman. So he's a freshman assemblyman, and usually a lot of freshman assemblymen can't take a leadership role because they're just trying to get their feet wet. Correct. But there's also a lot of assemblymen that go to Carson City that hasn't put a bill forward and never sponsored a bill. He has sponsored a bill. He has sponsored the to freeze the accounts of pimps that are trafficking and prostituting minors, and that was a bold move for him to make, being a freshman assemblyman. Correct?
Shouldn't that have been done a long time ago? I give him all the credit in the world. We can't
get
go
off. Hold on, I just want to make a point. We can't go what should have been done before he got there.
Okay.
We can only talk about once he got there.
You also should make a point that, and I, as a disclosure, you should make the point that in fact the veterans in politics did endorse him.
That's true,
and that's fair comment. But that doesn't reflect upon me in any way, other than the fact I have my own agenda.
Right.
John has his. I believe his agenda is not as broad-minded as mine.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
David, you mentioned there's three corners: education, business. What's the third in your eye?
Actually, it's really a compendium of the two.
Okay.
But it relates to the state being responsive. And again, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat. It's the state being able to demonstrate a fair and equitable tax program, and we haven't done that yet. You can't have a business come into a community, even the businesses that are here, and have them plan for things with an unstable tax base.
Right.
So coupled with the other two items, we've got a lot of work to do in Carson City. One of the things I would have loved to have seen happen would be a new constitutional convention called. But unfortunately, the present Constitution, if you examine the clause that governs that particular item, takes you a number of years to get that convention called. My whole thrust in this is we have to develop a business, a state government that runs a 21st century state. And we're back in the 19th century with some old ways of doing things. And it's not going to pull us out. It's not going to help us get those jobs.
And if you do become the assemblyman, what's the first piece of legislation you're going to put forward on the floor?
I would like to do some work with the couple of things. The first one is the Hatch Act equivalent. The second, I don't know if you're familiar with it, it's double dipping in an extreme situation. You can't hold different positions in government. You have to have one.
Okay.
Not like Wendell Williams when he double dipped.
You're absolutely right. That's a good example.
Isn't that against the law, period?
Well,
or against a violation of some kind of ethics code or something?
It may very well be, but we don't have the equivalency of what most other states do have in terms of a Hatch Act.
So we need some endorsement with that.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like to see is an examination, if I could, and put forth some vocational training, bolstering of vocational training in the school. And that's designed to try and attempt to stop the dropout rate and at least start going in that direction. One of the third things I would like to see is a closer examination of what's contained in both the stakeholders' program, that project that came out that Senator Horsford put forth. But more importantly, I'd like them to take a look very closely at the recommendations of the SAGE Commission.
How about taxes? Are you for more taxes?
No, I'm not. Excuse me. I'm not in favor of increasing any taxes of any nature until we examine the spending side. You've got a spending and revenue side. They're completely out of whack. Every time you hear a politician talk, all they say is, we're going to have to increase taxes. We're not going to have to increase taxes if we first examine the spending side. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, or maybe it's a wishful thinking, but somewhere along the line, you've got to have the will to do that before you say, put another tax burden on the people of the state, or any state for that matter.
How about a new revenue source?
It's a good point.
Have you ever thought of one that you would like to see?
Technology, the various technologies are very, very important. We could certainly attract that business here.
And when you say technology, exactly, what do you have in mind?
Well, there's an interesting experimental technology in a form of new surfacing of roads. Embedded in the new surface are electronic devices that would generate electricity and control the roadways. It's an experimental kind of technology, but it's thinking outside of the so-called box that makes things kind of exciting. And it's stuff like that we could attract. Now, Nevada certainly has enough sun or energy available to it, especially in the south, to make that worthwhile. And as you repair a roadway, think about the possibilities of doing something of that nature. That's the sort of thinking that I'm trying to direct myself towards.
Well, David, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate you coming on board.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Could you give us your point of contact, your information?
Yes, my website is Lerner 4, that's the number 4, assembly.com, very original. I would appreciate it. My home telephone number is 804-2681, and that's a real person at the other end of the line. That's me.
And they could call anytime.
Within reason.
Okay. All right, folks, thank you so much, David. That's David Lerner, the Democrat candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 2. And don't go away, folks. We'll be back with Bill Gonzalez, Clark County District Court Judge, Family Division, Department F. This is Steve Sanson and Deborah Vick with Veterans in Politics.
This infomercial is brought to you by the Veterans in Politics International. The Veterans in Politics mission is to teach, educate, organize, and awaken our veterans and their families to select, support, and vote intelligently for a better world and to protect ourselves from our own government and a culture of corruption and to be the political voice for those and other groups that do not have one. Remember, 1 in 6 Nevadans are vets.
There are too many homeless vets and more programs are needed at the VA. Every veteran service organization post should adopt a local homeless veteran.
Funding of VA medical centers is inadequate, and building a VA hospital in Southern Nevada is moving at a slow pace. The budget has been flatlined for too many years. The VA is too quick to deny claims and too slow to help veterans gather records in support of claims.
Local politicians ignore veterans and their issues. They perceive a lack of organization among their local veterans and that it won't hurt them at election time. Veterans too often vote party, not veterans issues. All veterans should vote in every election.
Local news media give inadequate coverage to local veteran issues and events. You must send your letters to the editor and voice your concerns.
Please contact your members of Congress and Senate and urge them to co-sponsor key legislation in supporting our veterans. Please support the Veterans in Politics. To get more information, go online to www.veteransinpolitics.com. Support your local veteran groups.
What are you doing online? Checking out the belly dance contest. Where's it at? Factorbelly.com. That's right. We worked our arms. We worked our abs. We worked so hard and had a blast. No matter what your favorite size, from belly dance, no piece of price. For cross schedule and location, log on to factorbelly.com.
Hi, my name is Ken Walther, and I'm the conservative veteran small business owner, candidate for Assembly District 18. I ask you to visit my web, ken4nevada.com. That's Ken, number 4, Nevada.com, to see what my issues and plans are. We need smaller government, not bigger, and we all need to pull together. This is Ken Walther, ken4nevada.com. Join me in taking Assembly District 18 back for the people. I approve this message. Thank you.
Paid for by the Friends of Ken Walther.
Hello, my name is Steve Sanson. I'm the president of Veterans in Politics International. This country and state are in trouble with budget cuts, unemployment, foreclosures, teacher shortage, dropout rates, terrorism, and a loss of military service members. The outcome of this election will profoundly affect families, both military and non-military. Military men and women are dying for other countries to have the right to vote. As a former member of the United States Marine Corps and the Army, I know how important it is to keep the voters informed. Log on to the website veteransinpolitics.com. All Americans of voting age need to not only vote, but research your choices. The Veterans in Politics organization has taken a proactive approach to supporting candidates who will have the courage to protect all of our freedoms and our Constitution. Visit our website at veteransinpolitics.com. Don't just talk about who you support. Research your choices and vote.
Well, we're back. This is Steve Sanson and Deborah Vick with Veterans in Politics. In studio, we have Judge Bill Gonzalez, who is a candidate for his own re-election, running for Family Division Department F. Judge, how are you, sir?
Great, Steve. Deborah, a pleasure to be on the show with you today.
Thanks for coming on out.
Judge, could you give us a bio about yourself?
Well, I've been an attorney here in town for 13 years. I've been sitting on the bench now for a year and a half. It was previously occupied by Judge Stephanie Miley. She had ran and won an election for a different department. So I went through the judicial selection process. They look over your finance, your health issues, your experience in the courtroom. They look over pretty much everything. And if you're fortunate enough, you get to be one of the top 3 and you get to meet with the governor and his staff. I met with them, and about 3 weeks later, Steve, I was driving to work and I got a call from the governor. It says, "Bill, Judge, we'd like to give you a job." And I said, "Absolutely." Since that time, I get to the courthouse about 6 every morning. Some things are easy in family court. Some things are extremely difficult. The preparation is very difficult. being fair to everybody who comes in the courthouse, no matter who they are, treating them with respect, and doing your darndest. That's the easy part.
You used to work for the juvenile division. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, in the juvenile division, I was in the juvenile public defender's office for 5 years. I represented over 2,000 children. We represented a lot of the girls who were victims of human trafficking that ended up in the teenage prostitution calendar, worked with social workers in assisting these young ladies, many of them from outside of our community, represented children from the age of 8 to up to 21. A lot of these children had mental health issues. They were in foster care. Now in the courtroom, I see them in a different role, but dealing with their issues are pretty much the same.
I don't know. I think I know what side of the fence you're going to be on with this. Question number one that's going to be on the ballot: whether judges should be appointed or elected. And you were appointed, and then you're running for re-election. How do you feel about that question? Should the judges be appointed or elected?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. I mean, as voters, it's very important that we have our right to vote. But at the same time, with the judicial races, you may have somebody who has a lot of money or name recognition but does not have the experience to be in the courtroom. And I think members of our community are entitled to have a judge who has, courtroom experience and a judge who has the ability in the community and to make good decisions. You don't go through a vetting process through the election. And to be frank, most voters have no idea who us judges are. They haven't a clue. And if you go through this vetting process, you're not going to have somebody who has no experience and no reason to be in the bench. So in that regard, I support it. I think on the ballot right now, it's a retention election. So if you have somebody who's a bad apple, who's not serving the community, you have a way to remove that person from the bench.
And that's so funny, Judge, because if we're going to say that judges should be appointed, well, then all elected officials should be appointed, because I had some assembly candidates that didn't know anything about the Constitution, that thought that Southern Nevada was where the legislative building was held, that thought that the state assembly was a full-time position. So shouldn't all elective positions be appointed by some kind of selective committee? I mean, you got the U.S. Senate race. That's a very, very, very important position to hold. So is Congress, so is the governor. So why don't we just have everything appointed then?
Well, I think if we go back to the inception of our country, Steve, this was an issue that the Founding Fathers grappled with, and this was something that was of great discussion. And it's interesting as to, are we going to have a king? Are we going to have a president? That was up for debate. And they decided, look, we don't like the road we went down with a king. We should have a president. Representation by the states, local government. How are we going to have equal representation when some states have more, people living, have a greater population? But as to the Article 3 articles, the judicial officers, they were adamant, and there was no discussion, give these persons a lifetime appointment. If you're going to make a decision and tell Congress, look, this is what you're doing is unconstitutional, you want those folks out of politics. And there was no question that the Founding Fathers believed that the judiciary should be protected, and the only way you protect them is give them a lifetime appointment. Otherwise, they're subject to making a ruling that's unpopular and getting removed from the bench.
Okay. But do you think it's politics as well? Because there's a selective panel that actually picks these district judges and then sends the 3 names to the governor to pick. Do you think that's politics, Judge?
I think everything is politics, Steve, and if you think otherwise, I think you're sadly mistaken. But the way it works out, the state bar gets to select 2 attorneys that would be standing members of that attorneys. The governor gets to select 2 attorneys. There's other attorneys that would come in. For example, in my race, it was a family court race. They brought in from the state bar somebody who has family law experience so they could give some input. Then there are members from the community at large that are not attorneys. They're just members in our community who care about the judicial process. Additionally, an equal amount is selected by the governor. An equal amount selected by the judicial committee is overseen by the Chief Justice. And also, Steve, as a protection, you can't have more of one party on the committee than others. And so in order for the governor to make a selection, he can't just select his friends or his, anybody else there. You have to get through the committee and be one of the top 3 candidates before the governor gets to make the call there. So I think in that regard, there are some protections in there. In the election process, there's issues there also. I mean, if you have $200,000 to burn, you could basically buy yourself a judicial seat.
I don't know. I just, in my opinion, I like the way the process is right now. If a seat is vacated, then it's up to the governor to go ahead and pick, and then that particular appointee goes to re-election and let the people decide. I just think that there's too many people out there that control government, and I think that the people are just not getting a grasp on what's going on. And if anybody wants to run for office, I know it takes money to go out there and run, Judge. I really do. I mean, I've done it 3 times, and I know it takes money, but I just think that the will of the people should determine who is best to represent them. And a lot of people are paying more and more attention to these judicial races than any other year before.
The most difficult problem as being a judge is not necessarily what's going on in the courtroom, but you have to go out and campaign. If you're doing a good job in the community and somebody's running against you and they're putting out signs and they're, campaigning, you have to do something. You can't just sit there and not spend money. And believe it or not, Steve, and I know you're going to believe this one, most of the people who support the judges are the attorneys that appear in front of you. They put in more money to these campaigns than anybody else. And that really puts the judges in a very difficult situation, very awkward situation, and it's something that you have to face every day. And if you don't have the integrity to make the right decision, regardless of who's in front of you, that really puts the judiciary in a difficult situation, and I don't think it's good for the community either.
Okay. How much money did you raise for this race, Judge?
So far, I believe I have $61,000 that has come in, and I've probably spent about $75,000. So I put about $15,000 of my own money in, and I think each time I've ran, I put about $15,000 in.
Okay. So you feel that the judiciary should have a lifetime position?
I'm just saying, as far as what the founding fathers thought as far as the judiciary, I think I like the retention election, that if you have somebody in there that's not representing the community, taking advantage of their power, and as judges, we have a lot of power to change somebody's life. And if somebody's doing that, I think we have to have a way to remove them. And honestly, right now, most judges run unopposed. Whether you're a good judge or you're a bad judge, you run unopposed. And if they run unopposed, the community can't even vote them off anyways because they don't have any way to vote them off. Here with the retention election, you would have an opportunity to say, you know what, either you do a better job in our community or you're facing, being taken off the bench.
Well, I probably could understand what you're saying about that. Like Eric Goodman, when he ran for Justice of the Peace, he ran unopposed, and and he was never a judge, and he ended up winning. And then you have Joe Bonaventure that ran, and he was only an attorney for 2 years, which because of him they changed it to 5 years now for Justice of the Peace and 10 years for district. So I can understand what you're saying.
And again, I just want to make it perfectly clear. You have people in the community that run through elections that are great jurists, and they have done a great job. Unfortunately, you've had some people, and I'm not saying anything about the 2 that you mentioned, but there's been some out there in our community that had no courtroom experience and should not have been on the bench, and because of the election process, where most people do not know anything about us.
Do you feel judges, especially family court judges, do you feel that they should have a family, be married, and have some kids to have some kind of criteria of what's going on in their own personal life to become a family court judge?
I think you should have experience with children, absolutely. If you're going to make important decisions about children, you need to have some background there. I think the most important thing that you need, because you can teach parts of the law, you can teach rules of evidence, you can teach family law or civil law, but what you can't teach is somebody's personal integrity. And that's something very important. You need somebody who's going to be fair no matter who's in the courtroom. You're going to need somebody who shows up to work prepared every single day and is very cognizant of the important issues that are in family court. And that's what you need. And if you don't have that, I don't care how much experience you have, if you don't show up to work and you're not making good decisions, you should not be on the bench.
Has any of your cases been appealed or overturned?
I've only been on the bench a year and a half now. There's some cases that have been appealed in my department previously to me that I've come back and I've addressed. They weren't appealed because I was a judge. I'm not certain how many cases that of mine that have been appealed. I don't think there's been that many. And the appellate process, because we don't have an appellate court, everything goes to the Supreme Court. Generally, something does not come back in a year and a half.
So what do you think you drew 2 opponents?
Well, I think in part, I did not come, let's say, directly from the family bar. Even though the children that I represented in juvenile court, that was in family court. But I think a lot of them took issue that, I didn't have the divorce and the custody background. And again, for me, the legal issues are extremely important, but I'll give you a quick example as to where the legal issues aren't the most important thing, and it takes the time of the family court judge to make the right decision. Right now, because of our economy, we may have two parents that are divorced, great parents, both love their children, nurturing homes, but one of the parents has to leave our jurisdiction because of the economy, and they're getting a job in California, Arizona, back east. And as a judge, I have to make a determination. Do the children stay in our community with a parent here, or do they leave? Is it in the children's best interest to leave out of state? That is a very difficult decision. It's a decision that will break your heart. And it's not really a legal decision. It's looking at the facts and determining what's in the best interest of the children. That just takes time. And what I do in many cases, because some of these cases, it's like a flip of a coin. You don't know. I bring the children into the courtroom, and we have a discussion. Do you understand, your dad or your mom is moving out of state? You're going to school here. Do you understand this is going to impact you? And many times I make a decision based on the child's preference, and that's allowable under the statute. And inevitably, I'm going to have a parent walking out of the courtroom crying because they realize they're not going to have that close association that they've enjoyed in the past with their children.
What ages are we talking about you do this?
Well, I look at it. I started anything below 8. I would not probably look at that. And I'm not saying
so 8 and above.
8 and above. And why I say 8 as a baseline, you could be charged as a crime and being brought into court as an 8-year-old for stealing something in the store. So I figure if you can be charged for a crime, you could probably make a decision as what you believe is in your best interest.
I understand you want to do what's best for the kids, but you think all that pressure is reasonable for a child of 8 years old?
I'm just saying that's where I would start. You may have a child that's an 8 that's developmentally 5. You may have a child that's 15 or 14 that's operating well below that. I may have interviewed one child who's 8, but you have to make a determination. Does this child before you understand what's going on? Are they able to make a reasonable decision regarding their preference? And am I going to give a 13 or a 14-year-old complete discretion? If I did, this planet would not be around very much longer, right?
But some children usually go with the less disciplinary parent.
Well, that's where you have to, again, it's not the deciding factor. You have to look at the entire picture, and you have to look at ultimately where is this child going to be best served.
And Judge, what are you going to do different if you retain your seat for the next 4 years, 6 years?
It'd be for the next 4 years and 6 years after that.
Okay.
Well, Steve, I don't plan on doing a lot differently. Again, I get it at the courthouse at 6 in the morning. I read all the pleadings. When I first took the bench, the attorneys and the litigants didn't know what to expect. So what I would do is I would quote something obscure from each side in their pleadings, and then they would realize, look, the judge has read everything and he's prepared. I think our community is entitled for a judge who comes to work prepared, who shows up every day. I'm going to treat anybody, I don't care if you're a janitor or you're the president of the United States. You come in front of me, you're going to be treated with respect, and I'm going to be as fair as I can. I don't have a crystal ball, I don't have a magic wand, but I'm going to be as fair as I can to each person who's in front of me.
Well, Judge, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. And could you give us your
contact information?
Thank you, Deborah.
Okay. You can find more information about me at judgebillgonzalez.com. I would like to say that I've been endorsed by Veterans in Politics, so thank you very much. The Asian American community has endorsed me, the Asian American group. I think with the exception of one, all law enforcement agencies here, pretty much across the board, Citizens for Responsible Government, just everybody out there, I've gotten broad support, and I think everybody in our community would like to have a judge who's fair, who's doing a good job, and I believe I'm doing that. Again, this is Judge Bill Gonzalez, Department F. To the voters, I appreciate your support, and I look forward to having your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you, Judge. That's Judge Bill Gonzalez, who's the Clark County District Court Judge for Family Division, Department F, and a candidate for the same seat. And he has been endorsed by the Veterans in Politics International. So we'd like all the Veterans in Politics listeners to go out and cast your ballot for Judge Bill Gonzalez. Thank you so much, Judge.
Thank you, sir.
This is Steve Sampson and Deborah Vick with Veterans in Politics. We'll be back momentarily with Kevinn Donovan, Democrat candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 22.
This is Chuck Ann Baker, the editor of the Veterans Reporter newspaper, the only newspaper in Nevada for veterans and their families. Pick up your free copies at most VA offices, most libraries, at the American Legion, the VFW, the DAV, and hundreds of other locations. We also produce the Veterans Reporter radio show every Thursday night from 8 to 9 p.m., KLAV Radio, AM 1230, and we stream it live, www.klav1230am.com. This is Chuck Ann Baker for the Veterans Reporter newspaper.
Amazing online. Checking out the belly dance couple. Where's it at? BackYourBelly.com. That's right. We worked our arms. We worked our abs. We worked so hard and had a blast. No matter what your favorite size. Some belly dance. You'll be surprised. For cross schedule and locations, log on to BackYourBelly.com.
This infomercial is brought to you by the Veterans in Politics International. The Veterans in Politics mission is to teach, educate, organize, and awaken our veterans and their families to select, support, and vote intelligently for a better world and to protect ourselves from our own government in a culture of corruption and to be the political voice for those and other groups that do not have one. Remember, 1 in 6 Nevadans are vets.
There are too many homeless vets, and more programs are needed at the VA. Every veteran service organization post should adopt a local homeless veteran.
Funding of VA medical centers is inadequate, and building a VA hospital in Southern Nevada is moving at a slow pace. The budget has been flatlined for too many years. The VA is too quick to deny claims and too slow to help veterans gather records in support of claims.
Local politicians ignore veterans and their issues. They perceive a lack of organization among their local veterans and that it won't hurt them at election time. Veterans too often vote party, not veterans issues. All veterans should vote in every election.
Local news media give inadequate coverage to local veteran issues and events. You must send your letters to the editor and voice your concerns.
Please contact your members of Congress and Senate and urge them to co-sponsor key legislation in supporting our veterans. Please support the Veterans in Politics. To get more information, go online to www.veteransinpolitics.com.
Support your local veteran groups.
Well, we're back. Steve Sampson and Deborah Vick with Veterans in Politics. We have live in studio Kevinn Donovan, Democrat candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 22. Kevin, welcome.
Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me today.
Kevin, could you give us a bio and give us your geographical district lines, boundary lines?
Quickly, my name's Kevinn Donovan. I'm running for Assembly District 22. Married to my beautiful wife, Janine. Together we have 4 young children. The oldest is 8. They go 2, 4, 6, and 8.
Keeping the numbers even.
We try to keep it even. We're about to turn odd here over the next couple birthdays. At any rate, we've lived in Nevada for 12 years. We moved away in 2004 and moved back in 2007. And originally I'm from Texas and Pennsylvania. I was recruited out of college to come here and build construction projects. Currently, I'm running for Assembly District 22. It is the second largest assembly district in the state. Almost 90,000 registered voters, which makes it larger than most Senate districts. It runs from Rhodes Ranch, Spanish Trails, Southern Highlands, Mountains Edge, comes across the 15 and picks up Inspirata, Seven Hills, all the anthems, quite a bit of the McDonald Ranch stuff, and continues all the way out to Wagon Wheel, pretty much anything south of Horizon Ridge. It jots north in a few spots at Silverado Ranch and so forth, but for the most part, it's the southern boundary of Henderson and Clark County.
You know, you have on your website that you want to stabilize property tax, but did you know that what I've been hearing is that the assessor's office have been over assessing people on their property tax? Have you been aware of that?
I haven't been aware of the over-assessing. I know that in 2005, when they passed the first stabilization of property taxes, when the values kept going up, what's happening now, like my home, I'm playing catch up on my taxes. So even though my assessed value is coming down, I'm still not at the current tax rate because of the 3% increase every year. So I know a lot of individuals are in my shoes where even though our home values are going down, our property taxes are continuing to go up. So it was a beneficial idea when the home prices were skyrocketing, and it's kind of hurting those now that the economy is suffering. It wasn't a well thought out plan.
So exactly, how would you stabilize property tax?
I'm a proponent of assessing what is actually physically there as opposed to what someone thinks it's worth. So, the current way we assess property in Southern Nevada is, some guy or gal who's in the assessor's office feels your home is worth X or it's worth Y, and then they plug that into a little algorithm and it spits out a value that you pay your taxes. And I kind of am more of a proponent of paying taxes on what you actually have: 4 bedrooms, a swimming pool, quarter acre, half acre, number of parking garage spaces, things that are more fixed, so that when the economy takes a tumble, the property collection doesn't take a tumble. And you can put a small piece of that equation on an assessed value so that you can have some fluctuation as property values go up and down. But for the most part, the value would stay fixed. And to go even further, what I'd like to do that I think would be even better is you could take put an age component on it, so that if you stay in that house, the longer you stay in it, the less property tax you pay. So if you retire in that home, and when you're retired, you're not driving your car as much, you don't have any more kids in the education system, so on and so forth, you can pay less property taxes if you stayed in that neighborhood and kept that neighborhood up, and didn't create the transiency that we do have. Something like that might incentivize people to stay in their homes longer.
So do you believe in the Attorney General send out an email to a bunch of lenders, mortgage lenders, and requesting that they put a freeze on the foreclosure market, a temporary freeze? Do you believe that was a good that was a good decision for her to make?
Well, I was kind of wondering if that temporary freeze is going to expire when she gets reelected.
Good assessment.
So it's why do it? Why would you come up with that idea now? I mean, that should have been in place 2 years ago. These banks, they are as equally responsible for what's happening with these foreclosures as the people who got themselves into the mortgage in the first place. I think anyone who's an elected official in our state has not done a good enough job requiring these banks to take care of their business, because it is their business. And a lot of people say, well, banks don't want to be property holders. They don't want to run property and manage property. And if you follow the paper and read the paper or the news or whatever, look at Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. That was a privately funded or privately held project that was foreclosed by the bank, and the bank got into the casino business, and now they finished it and opened it. So when it financially makes sense for the bank to take care of business, they're going to do it. And when they can get away with it, they're going to get away with it. And right now they're getting away with it.
Well, you even have Clark County Commissioner Steve Sisolak on here endorsing you.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Sisolak and I are good friends, and
he's also a good friend of mine.
And he's quite the advocate for me, and I appreciate his endorsement.
You got to attract new Nevadans. How would you go about doing that?
In Nevada now, I guess thanks to the banks and the economy, housing here is incredibly affordable for retirees, especially. And we have people that are retiring all over this country every single day, and a lot of them still have pensions, and they can take those pensions wherever they want. And I believe it's our job to be recruiting those individuals and showing them what Las Vegas, Southern Nevada, Henderson, Clark County has to offer those individuals. And I think there is a lot to offer here. We don't have any income taxes in this state, and home values are at prices they haven't been since 1998 when my wife and I moved here originally.
You're talking about bringing in the more retired people. Our health system isn't that great. People go back to California and go to other states to get their health care taken care of.
Well, healthcare and let's just call it jobs. We can wrap all that into jobs, and healthcare is an important component of that. Over the last 3 years is when I really started getting politically active, and as the recession hit, I was laid off. I was laid off last year for 5 months. And I've never worked so hard in my entire life to try to find another job. Even when I was working, I never worked as hard as it took to find another job.
And I'm sure you're preaching to a lot of choir members out there right now.
There's a lot. And, now I make 40% less money. I make a salary I haven't made since 2003. And, no one that I've seen that's an elected official has done anything to bring jobs to this town. And no one's calling, healthcare providers or organizations and recruiting them. I mean, these companies in business, healthcare is a business, they want recruited. They want the best deal, and it's not just stabilized business taxes or a broad-based business tax and low business taxes. They want to know what else you're going to do for them, and you just can't create a great tax climate. You have to go sell that great tax climate, and you have to go sell everything else that your city has. And I don't see anyone who's elected taking that leadership role and going out there and marching and going, knocking on the door of Apple or Microsoft and saying, what do we need to do to get you here?
Well, they give you the answer. They need a workforce that they can, that's already here and established. And we don't have that. We don't have that with our education. We can't keep our students here, even though the millennium money is running out. It's dwindling away. My daughter just went through that. She has it. However, people leave the state who actually do want to get a good education. So I'm not hearing the basis of our solution here is building up our workforce.
I agree. The workforce is the problem. My opinion of the fundamental problem with the workforce is Las Vegas Boulevard. We have a industry, the only industry in this town. The biggest industry in this town is the casino industry, and they thrive off of uneducated workers.
Well, I have to, now that Vegas has had that strip I've been here for going on now 2 decades. I've raised my child here, so I've seen a lot of change. I've moved away from the strip as houses kept moving away from the strip, okay? So we're not, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You have children being brought up in this town. They're getting educated through this town, and they don't go to the strip. The strip is called the city that they maybe go through. So it's a different animal. It's not like how it used to be. So things are making changes. When people refer to all we have here is the strip, I'm going to have to say, no, there's families here that are striving for attention, that are striving, and we're kind of like the pioneers buckling down saying we can make this happen. It's valid, but we need help with the school district.
If we want to talk about the school district, we can switch and talk about that, and we can just talk about education in general.
Right.
Some of the biggest problems we have are 2 real simple ones with education in the state. One, if you look at education, it's on the bottom of the ballot.
Absolutely, always is.
It always is. So as far as electing education, we put it last.
What are you going to do?
I'd like to see it at the top. I think it should be at least above the attorneys, if not on the top of the ticket. So, because right now you got to get through all the judges to find who's running for education. And then when you get down to them, you don't even know who these people are. My current school board trustee doesn't even have a high school diploma, and she's been elected and is running the school board.
That scares me.
That should scare you.
Who's that?
That would be Trustee Wright, Deanna Wright.
Steve, you knew who that was.
But you know something, Kevin, we're going to have to let you go because Deborah has to make an announcement.
Oh, go ahead.
But we'd like to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Could you give us your point of contact?
Website, all that kind of goodness.
How do we get a hold of you?
www.Kevinn with 2 N's, Kevinn, Donovan, DONOVAN.com. That's my website. You can email me at Kevinn Donovan with 2 N's at cox.net. And you can email me, and on my website, you can phone me too. You can get me at 702. I'm going to give you this number. It's 487-5583.
Thank you, Kevin, so much.
All right.
Good luck with you in your race in Department 22.
Great, thanks.
That's Kevinn Donovan, Democrat candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 22. Deborah.
Yes, Steve asked me to come on and, of course, help out. I have a talk show myself, which is called Moving Forward Show. You can, if you're a Facebook fan, you can go on and log on and Moving Forward Show. We're also on alltalkradio.net, and we're all about getting Nevada to the next level through jobs, through your business growing wherever it's at to the next level, or if you cannot find a job, we help you create your own work. So we're all about making Nevada home.
Well, thank you, Deborah. This is Steve Sampson, Deborah Vick with Veterans in Politics. And don't forget to vote starting October 16th, and we'll see you next week.
And I won't forget the men who